States, and I want you all to know that I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think I could do a really good job. And I wouldn't be doing this if I thought that either of the two major parties were actually talking about the problems that we're facing and the solutions that go along with them. And very quickly, I think I'm different in many, many ways. And that would start off with not bombing Iran. Let's not bomb Iran. Let's get out of Afghanistan tomorrow. I think that marriage equality is a constitutionally guaranteed right, that it is a federal issue. I would have never signed the Patriot Act. I would have never allowed for Homeland Security to be in existence. I think it's incredibly redundant. And these drones that we're flying now in this country, what's that all about? Well, I think that more than anything has to do with a continuation of the war on drugs. And I would have never signed the National Defense Authorization Act, which allows for you and I as U.S. citizens to be arrested and detained without being charged. This is why we fought wars in this country. And I absolutely, adamantly believe that unless we balance the federal budget, we're going to find ourselves in a monetary collapse in this country. That there's no escaping the mathematics of continuing to borrow and print money to the tune of 43 cents out of every dollar that we're spending. And so to cut government by 43%, that's a $1.4 trillion reduction in federal spending. And that needs to start with a debate on Medicaid and Medicare and military spending, all of which I would propose 43% reductions in those categories. You know, you got two candidates on stage that were debating the other night over who's going to spend more money on Medicare, when Medicare is a system that you and I pay $30 into, and we get a $100 benefit. And by extension, we pay $30,000 into Medicare and get a $100,000 benefit. In no way is this sustainable. And yet, we seem to have our heads in this. I don't think American people have their heads in the sand, but I think American politicians have their heads in the sand. And that they want us to believe that the Tooth Fairy, that the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus are coming. And they're not. This is going to involve mutual sacrifice on the part of all of us to fix this, but I think we all recognize that, and we need to engage in this. I'm also the only candidate running that is proposing to eliminate income tax, eliminate corporate tax, abolish the IRS, and replace all of it with one federal consumption tax, which I think really reboots the American economy for the next 100 years. It's the answer when it comes to our exports, because we're going to bleed out 23% worth of non-transparent federal tax out of all goods and services that we export. So it's really the answer when it comes to China. It's really the answer when it comes to American jobs. Because in a zero corporate tax rate environment, if the private sector doesn't create tens of millions of jobs, I don't know what it takes to create tens of millions of jobs. And it also ends up to be cost neutral. So it really, in my opinion, reboots the American economy. And all these issues aren't being talked about at all today. And they should be talked about front and center. And then I'm the only candidate running for President of the United States that wants to end the drug war now. Legalize Colorado has this incredible opportunity, and I hope you all realize this. Colorado has the opportunity to change drug policy worldwide. I mean, this is what's at stake here. And Colorado gets it. And I go back to 6 years ago, Denver voting to decriminalize marijuana on a campaign based on marijuana being safer than alcohol. 90% of the drug problem is prohibition-related, not use-related. That's not to discount the problems with use and abuse, but that should be the focus. I remember meeting with judges in Portland, Oregon, when I was governor of New Mexico. I didn't know how that meeting was going to go, but I show up. There's 6 judges there. And what they said was, you know, we're here to tell you that we think that what you're saying on the drug issue is just right on. But we would like to share with you some stories here that you might pass on to others to allow others to better understand the drug issue. They said that methamphetamine is really the terrible, horrible drug. You use methamphetamine, your behavior gets altered, you do bad things, and really our courts are filled with people that do bad things on methamphetamine. But they said methamphetamine is the best example we can think of a prohibition drug. Wouldn't exist but for prohibition, because it's cheap, it's easy to make, and so the consequences fall disparagingly on the poor. They said, we're not suggesting the following, but if cocaine were legal, people would use cocaine instead of methamphetamine without the negative behavioral consequence. Now, wouldn't it be wonderful, though, if the government actually told the truth when it came to drug policy? And the truth when it comes to cocaine is that if you use cocaine, cocaine literally puts holes in your heart. It does. So the profile of a person my age that's used cocaine their entire lives, actually, they've died from a heart attack to this point. Whitney Houston is really kind of the poster child of somebody who uses cocaine their entire lives. At some point, they just die from a heart attack. So here we are. We're talking about legalizing marijuana in Colorado. We are talking about the initiative 301, Regulate Marijuana. I think it's really important that people understand the distinction between regulating, taxing, controlling a substance that if it isn't controlled, that's the prohibition aspect. I remember as governor of New Mexico talking to an editor of one of the huge national newspapers in this country. And he says to me, he says, you want to legalize pot? He said, when I was in college, I smoked some pot, and I walked into the grocery store, and the pictures of the roaches on the cans came alive. And you want to legalize this? And I said, my point exactly. You smoked some LSD weed, and really what you were after was just some beer weed. But this is a prohibition phenomenon. Quality, quantity, unknown. So controlling it, regulating it, taxing it. Colorado has this incredible, and I know you are all activists, and so I implore you to double your activism in the time remaining, because what's at stake here is the rest of the world is going to follow Colorado's lead. Now, I'm out all over the country, and I am saying that I think marijuana is at a tipping point in this country. 50% of Americans now support legalizing marijuana. Why is the number so high? Because we're talking about it. And I say this everywhere I go. Colorado is going to be the tipping point. It's on the ballot in Colorado. Regulate marijuana like alcohol. I think it's going to pass. And here's the dynamics of Colorado passing that is when everybody in the whole country gets on an airplane to fly into Denver for the weekend to chill out, the phenomenon of other states not following in line will quickly go by the wayside. So I applaud all of you. I applaud all of you, and back to this notion of redoubling your efforts with the time left. Typically, marijuana, California, you've all seen it before. Typically, the support fades at the end. I don't know why that's the case, but for people to talk about it, for you all being activists, pressing the issue, talking about it, let's control it, let's regulate it, let's tax it, let's label products that from a prohibition standpoint don't get labeled. So we're talking about safer. And I've never been a hypocrite on this issue. I smoked marijuana when I grew up. I'm one of the 100 million Americans who have smoked marijuana. And I had such hope for President Obama when he was elected in 2008. I had such hope because he has smoked marijuana. And if in the area of gay rights, in the area of military non-intervention, in the area of drug policy, I was just certain that all three of those areas were going to dramatically improve, all in a good way. Well, he promised that he wasn't going to crack down on medical marijuana facilities. And where legislatures, where citizens voted to implement those programs. Well, he's cracked down on facilities in Colorado, and he's cracked down on facilities in California. So what I always say about President Obama, you know, the words out of his mouth are like music. I don't know if I can disagree with anything that he says. It's just that the actions don't match up at all with the words. So here it is. I want to, you know, this is very specific. 301, yes. 64, yes. Redouble your efforts and make these happen for the rest of us in this country. Make this happen for the rest of us in this country. The opportunity here is unbelievable. The U.S. has cast a net over the world when it comes to drug policy. Nowhere is it legal to smoke marijuana. Nowhere. Because the U.S. has cast a net over the world that if you legalize drugs, there is the heavy anvil of doing no trade with the United States if that's the case. So if it starts within this country, if it starts with Colorado, you know, that's the first domino. That's the first domino of 50 dominoes, and the opportunity here is just out the roof. So thank you very, very much for taking your time here. I want to make a pitch that you have to be hearing it. You know, if I vote for Johnson, it's a wasted vote. You know, I think a wasted vote is voting for somebody that you don't believe in. I think that's a wasted vote. Voting for the person you believe in, that's how you change things in this country. And more votes for Gary Johnson, among a whole lot of other things, is saying, look, it's Americans shouting, we want rational drug policy in this country. And I think that once we legalize marijuana, and it's just a matter of time, I'm believing it's going to happen here. Once we do that, we take giant steps toward rational drug policy with regard to all the other drugs. And it starts with looking at drugs first as a health issue rather than a criminal justice issue.